What's up, everybody? Green Line Breakdown, episode 16. How are y'all doing today? Figure a little bit of oh geez, fix that. A little more fluid today. I hope everybody's having a good February. Now it's officially over. We're into March. Weather got a little warm this weekend. It got up to 45. Felt like Miami. It was great. And then it snowed right after. So I'm in a bit of a funk here, but I think the nice weather's right around the corner. I'm excited. I hope you guys are as well. I hope you're excited for Jayson Tatum's return. I believe it is quite imminent. I know we're waiting for our glorious light-skinned king to come back and bring us to the promised land, but that's not going to be tonight. There was some hope that he would be against the Sixers, which I'm filming this on Sunday. They play the Sixers at 8 o'clock, and hopefully he would return then, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. And if I'm looking at the schedule right, we play Dallas on Friday. It kind of seems like he's going to come back on Friday. He is a cornball, so he will not come back on a normal game. He's going to want national viewership. And that Dallas game, I think, is in the spotlight this week, if I remember correctly. Where are we? What are we doing? How is this team looking? How did we look last week? What's to come? Kind of want to run down what the rest of the league looks like this week. We are inching closer and closer. I think we just surpassed around 60, 65 games. Most teams have anyway. And we are really getting close to the start of the playoffs here. Some teams that were hot in the beginning have kind of cooled off towards the end of the season here. And some teams retooled at the trade deadline. So they are now more poised to enter the playoffs in a strong position. So we're going to get into that, but first we'll get into this week's games and see how we did. West Coast, right? It was a West Coast trip, starting with the Lakers on Sunday, or actually now that I say, I think I want to say there was one game before that. Anytime you go out to the West Coast, it is a slog for the team, right? Especially a team from Boston or New York. You fly all the way out there, and you have game after game, 10 o'clock start times, right? So I feel like most athletes, they get their body attuned to when they ramp up, when they get ready for the game. And it's by hour increments, right? So when 90% of your games are like 7:38, you kind of get used to that. And then all of a sudden you're starting 3 hours later every time. So that's got to be tough. So anytime you go over the West Coast, it is a tough trip. And if you get out of it, I always say like 3-1, that's really good. You're most likely going to drop one, and it'd be awesome to get out 4-0 like any week, but that's asking for a lot. So it looked like, we got out 3-1 this week. Some tough games, some close games, well fought. It started with the Warriors that we handled them quite well. Excuse me. And then Lakers, which I believe I talked about last week. And then we had the Suns on Tuesday. We had a pretty struck lineup. I don't know if that was planned rest or what it may have been, but a lot of the bench guys were getting major minutes against the Suns team, which has been okay. They're not anything, intimidating, I would say, but they're no slouches. They're seventh in the West. They're a solid team. They're right behind the Lakers. And the Suns, honestly, are a team that they have good construction. I like their owner, Sheeb, or no, sorry, that's the Nets. No, it's Matt Ishbia, Jiba. I don't know how to pronounce that, but he's a very progressive, aggressive owner. He doesn't like to cut his losses. He's a retooler. With getting rid of Durant, you would have thought with where the salary was, and you got rid of Aiden, and it was in a good spot to really like kind of take a step back, take a year off, try to recoup in the draft a little bit. And he doesn't play like that. He's a what I would call a sports owner, where some of these owners in all four major sports really are just owners for the financials, right? Team generates good money, so they put just enough and invest just enough to make the team passable, or even maybe not that far. There are some real bad owners out there. I don't know if there's any in the NBA I could really stick out to. Whoever owns Charlotte and whoever owns the Wizards, I don't know what they've been doing for the last years, but they're pretty bad. Like, I feel like the NFL, the owners are more well-known. The Jets owner, Johnson, he's not not a good owner. They're always a travesty. And then you have the Cleveland Browns owner. You have all these guys that just, they try their hardest and it never really works out for them. So then you have, and then, point out, this is more of a recent venture, but the Red Sox owner, which I'm a little familiar with, he was, when he originally took over the team back in the early 2000s, he was very aggressive. He wanted to bring a championship back to Boston. And he got it done. He got it done 4 times, but I think since post 2018, post 2020, he has so much more money invested in his soccer team overseas. I think he finally gave up ownership of the Penguins, but he was also involved with that. He's got a couple of sports teams, and not only that, but businesses as well. So he's pretty split on his focus, right? And sometimes teams suffer for it. And you look at the Red Sox, the spending hasn't been there, and just the general upkeep of a team just has not been there. And then you have owners like, Matt Ishbia for the Suns, Robert Kraft, the Patriots, guys who are committed to the team. That is their main focus. The ownership to drive a winning team. That is their focus and goal year in and year out. So I always like those guys. And the Suns could have sat down and took it for a year, but they didn't. They're recouping through trades. They had a fairly good draft. They have what I call, that's a stable team they have. Maybe not a lot of guys off the top of your head, but guys that are willing to coexist, be cohesive. I do like Devin Booker. They got Jalen Green, they got Dylan Brooks, Grayson Allen, a lot of guys that are pretty aggressive. Mark Williams. Yeah, there's a lot of guys I also don't know the names of, but just players who are not the most touted, but I feel together always play a pretty solid game, offensively, defensively. Like I said, they're not intimidating, but they are nothing to sneeze at, right? They're a team that's going to show up and play. And we played a very good game against them with a bunch of players that are basically bench. They are reserves, but they showed up and showed out. Now, a couple of things I want to point out here. Heavy minutes usage for some guys that probably needed it. Shireman got to play 32 minutes. You want to expose him more and more as the season goes on. It's going to take a step back when we get to the playoffs. He's not going to be playing 30 minutes a game, right? He'll go down to 10. But if you allow him to play 30 minutes, I think that allows these guys who don't generally get a lot of good time to understand where they should be playing to affect the game, where they are best positioned and suited for. In basketball, you make plays, right? You shoot, you get buckets, you make defensive plays, but positioning and passing lanes and all these small, minute details of basketball that you can get comfortable doing just a couple of things that can drastically affect the outcome of a game. And when you allow these bench players to play 30 minutes, it's just more opportunity to really narrow that down to what that is. So it's good to see Shireman getting 30 minutes, right? Because, he's been pretty inconsistent, but it allows him to just get that picture faster before the playoffs start. He only had 11 points. He was 50% from the field, 1 of 6 from the 3-point. But, 11 rebounds, which I think I want to point that out. Like, that's pretty good for a guy. I'm not expecting him to get that many. Those rebounds definitely made a difference in this game. So it wasn't a huge offensive point for him, but, defensively and just for board cleanup, that's huge. That's a point on my book. So, and then Hauser, 29 minutes. Hauser, didn't do fantastic. 16 points, 6-14 from the field, 4 of 10 for the 3-point, which is I think that's his average. So he was okay. He did all right, not blown away. I feel like he could have scored more on the field there. But, I'm not going to, the Suns team is a good defensive team. So I'm not going to really hound on them just because the score and the points weren't there, because they got the dub and it wasn't really ever close, I find. Keita, 27 minutes, 14 points. He was 50% from the field and 13 rebounds, which is good. I mean, I don't know if I think Keita is the leading rebounder, unless it's Brown, but he's definitely up there. I mean, he's getting major boards for us. Difference maker boards, right? Like momentum shifting, giving us additional opportunities. those offensive rebounds that he gets are huge. You never know when they throw out these small statistics, right? Of is this something that, oh, he got 30 rebounds. That's too high of a number. He got 15 rebounds. 13 of them were defensive rebounds and 2 of them were offensive rebounds. Nothing that's bad, but the more offensive rebounds you get, it allows for more opportunities for these guys to shoot on, outside the perimeter or better paint shots, and just second attempts are more likely to go in, right, than the first. So very important that he gets those. He needs to, remain the leading rebounder in games. He gets these major minutes in. Vucevic right behind him. Not a huge rebound game for him, and he only got 19 minutes coming off the bench there. But that's okay. Kid was carrying the load, and he needs to do that. And the big one I wanted to point out here was Ron Harper Jr. getting about 30 minutes. Wasn't super effective. 8 points, 3 for 10 in the field, 2 for 7 from 3, 5 rebounds. But that's a guy who has had no opportunity to have minutes like this. And him just getting 30 minutes is like a cardio test. But he held his own out there, which was good to see. And I think the more we can get him involved, he is a piece, kind of like a Tillman back in the 24 run, where Tillman would come in for very, very low minutes. But those 2 or 3 minutes, you didn't have a lot of film on that guy. You really weren't, didn't know what to expect out of him. And he made some plays in that run. I don't know if many of you remember, but Tillman made a couple of stout shots that really changed momentum in a couple of games. That's how I view Ron Harper and these young guys, and Gunless and and Walsh, guys who they have gotten good amount of minutes this year, but the film is not entirely there. And when game planning in the opponent's view, it's just harder to get a read on those guys. And if they can be effective in the small minutes they get come playoff times, it really does change the outcome of games. So good to see they're all getting big minutes in this game. Delano Bonton is back. I had no idea, or he's been on the roster, I guess. I don't know. I think we picked him up, got him on a 10-day, and then I think we let it expire. Yep, let it expire to stay under the tax. Not really sure what we're going to do with that. If we're doing it to stay under the tax, and maybe he was just got a couple minutes in that game to show off for other teams. Good. Missoula is pretty conscious about that, where it's like, let me give this guy an opportunity. We're probably not going to keep him around. Tatum's going to come back, fill that roster spot, and hopefully these couple of minutes will let him go off somewhere else. But yeah, I just remember seeing him when I looked up the Celtics' current roster. I'm like, when the hell did he get back? So he was back for a short time, but like I said, I think we cut him again. And you had Garza out there for no minutes, Walsh out there for little minutes. Pritchard was out there again majority of the time. Really did not do a whole lot. For 34 minutes. He scored 8 points, 2 of 13. I saw a lot of pictures after that from Lakers fans going, "Oh, he was lights out against us, but he plays the Suns, and all of a sudden he does nothing." And I don't know if they played Pritchard better than you did. What are you gonna say, right? Like, that's not Pritchard's fault. That's your guy's fault. So, lesson learned, I guess. I'm not 100% sure, but all in all, solid game against the Suns. 10 o'clock game late, or that was the 9 o'clock against the Suns. And then they traveled to Denver to play the Nuggets, full strength Nuggets. Like I said, you're 3-0, and then you have one more game back to back against the Nuggets, kind of being put in a tough spot, and we didn't get it done. We dropped the game against the Nuggets, and just trying to pull up the stats here for you guys, because I kind of had a bad feeling about it from the beginning. It just seemed like we were going to be put in a spot. It's good we got 3-0, right? Warriors, Lakers, and then beating the Suns. It just felt to me that you're playing the Nuggets on a back-to-back, and they rested a couple of guys, right? But it's still tough. Like, Brown gets rest. Didn't do a whole lot. 34 minutes, 23 points. But I say it's a whole lot because I feel like when you're playing a game like that, you got to be on top of your game. 30 points, right? You're playing against a good team. You're playing against Jokic. He shows up every night. I don't know if anybody saw that little skirmish, not with us, but I forget what team it was now. But man, he was giving him like death eyes. And like, thank God that didn't come out against us. He still beat us, but that guy is, I don't understand what goes through his head, and I wouldn't want to meet him face to face. So Brown, good from the free throw line, 8 of 9, which is insane for Jaylen Brown. That guy at least misses one every time he goes up to it. Good to see that. Hauser, 24 minutes and 5 points. Another argument against Hauser here where I thought they were going to get rid of him on the deadline. Consistency is not great. It is not great. And I'm not trying to shame him because, it's a back-to-back and he played all these games. You're in the lineup for a reason, getting major minutes. Don't love to see you're getting 5 points. You only took 2 3-pointers in 24 minutes. That's more my issue, right? So it's like, he's not even going to see if the shots are going in. You take 2 shots. In 24 minutes, you only have the opportunity to take 2 3-pointers. Come on. Keita, 28 minutes, major minutes, 10 points. Rebounding, Brown was the leader at 11, and everybody else was pretty average, actually, at 4-4, 4-6. So they were all right around. Combined rebounding effort for the team, which is good to see. It's either dominated by 1 or 2 guys or, everybody's got 4 or 5. I'll either way, I don't care. I don't need anybody to lead by major statistics. These are all just numbers in the end, but they add value to a win or loss. If the total rebounding is more than the other team, that's all that matters in the end, right? So combined effort, Derek White, 33 minutes and 20 points. Good to see. I wish I could see a little more points from him and Brown. Pritchard, 28 minutes, 3 points. So he took a little downturn after that Lakers game. I think they puffed him up too much and didn't have a great couple of games. That's really the end of the story. I don't want to dive too deep into these games and these statistics, but tough loss against Denver. You play 4 games, West road trip, and you win 3 of them. That is, I think, a win in my book. I wouldn't put that and say we are in a bad spot after this week. I think we're still strong in the 2nd seed in the East. And sure, we didn't beat Denver, but which would have been a nice win. That would have been a kind of another just stamp to say, like, yeah, well, we're still solid. Even without Tatum, we can beat these good teams where Denver's going to have a good playoff run, I think, depending on who they get in the first couple of rounds. But I think they'll go far this year. I like how their team's set up, and Jokic is Jokic, and nothing's changed. And, it's tough to lose one to those guys, but I just think the scheduling wasn't really in their favor. So I'm not going to ride them too hard for it. And then you had Brooklyn on Friday, and that was just a dominating game. I mean, the final score alone is really the indication there. The first half, it was actually fairly close. And then all of a sudden, fourth quarter comes around, and it's just 148 to 111. I don't know where those 38-point differential came from, but we went on a run there. And everybody really showed up to play. I mean, Jaylen Brown, 30 minutes, 28 points, right? About 50 from the free throw, 7 rebounds, 9 assists. Hauser, this is the difference here, right? 27 minutes. He took 6 shots this time. He only made 2 of them, but he took 6. He got 13 points, a lot in the paint, more than he usually does. So it's good to see he's just taking those shots. If you're getting 25 minutes a game and you've taken 2 shots, what are you doing? Take a couple more. We don't care if you miss, right? I know Missoula doesn't like bad shots, but take a shot. Take more than 2. Keita, 15 minutes, low minutes here, and 8 points. Derek White, 32, 12 points. Sharman, 22 minutes, 10 points. Vooch, big Vooch game. 25 minutes, 28 points. 9 for 13 from the field. 3 for 3 for the 3-point line. This was Vooch's welcome to the Boston Celtics game, I believe. Again, it is the Nets. But, it was in good timing. I think he's finally getting comfortable in the lineup here and working well with the team. So I think it is still early, but I do believe it was the right move to make. I think we were looking for size and we were looking for a little more explosion in moments, and he's bringing it. I think he gels well with the attitude of the team, and I think he's buying into what we as an organization really look for, and it's good to see. And I'm happy for that. So Jordan Walsh, 15 minutes, 6 points. Pritchard kind of came back here a little bit, 28 minutes, 22 points, 9 for 12 from the field, 5 from the 3. Big Pritchard game. He dropped a couple on the West, but he's right back to it against Brooklyn. So all in all, a good week. I think it was a great week. Like I said, a lot of young guys getting major minutes before the playoffs. That's big. As I said before, this is the opportunity for them to narrow down what is going to be best to utilize in their minor minutes come the playoffs, because I don't see any of these guys getting more than 20 minutes, right? They're never going to probably get over that, if not under. I would see 10 to 15 more likely for a lot of these guys. But in those 10 to 15 minutes, what are you doing with it? Where are you on the court? Uh, what are you doing to help your teammates? And what are you doing to alter or lead to the outcome of the game, right? So that's good. That's good to see. It's good to see Vooch is coming in. It's good to see the road trip didn't really affect anything, right? Sometimes guys go on these road trips and they slouch through them and they get worked 1-3, and it's bad luck. We burrowed through and got out of there with 3-1 record, and that's good, and came right back to it against Brooklyn and got another dub on the week. So, like I said, all in all, good week. Glad to see it. We're coming down the road here. The playoffs are right around the corner. We are ready. I think we're prepared. It's going to be interesting to see Tatum come back here within, I think, the next 2 weeks. I don't think we get out of March without seeing Tatum. I think they want to give him at least a couple of weeks to get ready with the team in live game situations to see how he gels. One of the topics I don't think we've really talked about is there a reality where I think no matter what, Tatum is coming back, right? But is there a reality in this next month here where Tatum comes back and it's just a disaster, and not even so much his leg isn't holding up or he's not the same, right? More so to say he really does completely change the vibe of the team, and all of a sudden we're just dropping 0-5 or something ridiculous. Is that possible or probable? And does it lead to a reality where they just say, Tatum, never mind, we're going to shut you down for the rest of the season? We would rather just go with this team. I don't think it's off the table. I don't see it happening, but you never know. Anything really is possible. And it is kind of getting late into the season. Like I said, there's only 20 less games left. So Tatum comes back, plays a couple here and there. I don't think he's going to play every game. So he's only going to get maybe 10 to 15 games worth to get in a spot where he is comfortable with the team. Now, these are guys he's played with for years, so it's probably going to be a little easier than, some random guys stepping in, even faster than probably it took Vooch to get used to the lineup. But it could be drastic. So it's something to watch out for. I see him coming back against Dallas on Friday. It was likely he was coming back tonight against the Sixers. Like I said, I'm filming this on Sunday. But they ruled him out, and I just don't see him coming back during a non-national game that's not in Boston. So Dallas seems to be the next case. I want to say if he was so close for the Sixers that 5 days later he'll step in. That is something I see happening. I could be wrong. I really want to see him back. I really want to see what this team looks like. So, I'm holding on, but I think Dallas is likely. So let's get into the standings and what these other teams look like, right? I want to talk about what I think are probably the 3 major contenders for us against the Celtics in the playoffs. Let's start with Detroit, right? I think everybody knows what Detroit is. Cade is an MVP candidate. I like how he plays. I think it's impressive what they've done. I love the setup of their team. It's not a lot of guys that they pulled out of nowhere, right? Where they're making these huge, drastic lineup changes, trading for a big piece and getting, right? No, it's small incremental builds through the draft, through free agency and trades, but they're not going out and bringing in LeBron or just somebody crazy to add with Cade, right? This is almost a natural growth, how a team should build. Just not too long ago, this was a team that had a 30-game, something crazy losing streak going on, right? And even then, I think it was Missoula who said that is a good team. They should not have that loss record, right? That is a good team with good players, and they're playing the right way. And with a little more time, they're probably going to be in a good position. And a little more time later, they're the number 1 seed in the East for good reason. I'm not super intimidated by any of these teams, but I'm not saying I'm comfortable playing against them either. Detroit could beat us. We could beat Detroit. Part of their, I guess, a con, you would say, is a lot of youth and a lot of playoff inexperience. They don't have a lot of guys who have gone on championship runs. Their major players are not guys that have history playing in the playoffs, dealing with that pressure, dealing with what is it, and evidently a different game, right? That goes for any sport. Regular season to the playoffs is a jump. It's a jump across the board. Defense is better. Offense is a little more conservative. They stick to what they're good at. And it's all good teams playing good teams, vying for a championship. So that's kind of Detroit's con. And that's kind of what helps me to say I'm not that intimidated. We are the opposite, right? Where everybody's got a good championship pedigree on this team. There's players that aren't. Like we got Vooch and some of these young guys who really weren't a part of the process, Garza, Shireman. But, we still got Hauser, Pritchard, Derek White, Brown, Tatum coming back. Kata's on those teams, winning culture, a winning understanding, how to win in the playoffs. We're probably the best team in the league for that. I think this is a crazy statement, but I do think we probably have one of the better winning percentages in the playoffs over the last 6-7 years. But Detroit is young and youthful, and they don't have a lot of that. So that's the Detroit Pistons. And then you've got, us at 2, and you got the New York Knicks at 3. And right now we're even with them. They have 2 more losses than we do, but they're right on our butts there. New York, I feel like New York always plays up against us. New York and Boston just have that animosity. It's just born into the organizations. So if we played against them, I wouldn't feel super safe about it. But they have not been impressing me down the stretch here. Jalen Brunson finally got to, 10,000 points? He hit some scoring milestone, and that's probably the biggest highlight they've had. But New York has not been solid. They're very inconsistent. They shouldn't be the 3rd seed right now. Even if they're right on us, they should be a couple games ahead of us, I think. But they had some bad stretches. But they're a seriously talented team, right? Between Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges. I love Mikal Bridges. Josh Hart. I hate Josh Hart, but, good player. I wish they still had DiVincenzo. You send the one Italian guy on your team to Minnesota is a crime against humanity in basketball. He should still be on that team. It's sad. It was sad to see. That New York is good. New York is New York, but I am not super impressed with how they have been these past few months. But also to say that I feel like they're a little bit of a boogeyman for us. It's just New York, right? Anything can happen. Rivalry games, divisional games, whatever it is, teams that you play and see all the time and geographically are very close to you where these rivalries exist. It's always weird. It's just always weird. Anything can happen, right? So that's why I would rather see New York probably in the earlier stages. I feel like the later it goes for some reason, if we're seeing them in the conference finals for whatever, or it wouldn't be conference, right? If the seeding didn't change, it wouldn't be. But if we're seeing them in the conference finals, I'm getting shaky at that point. But if we're seeing them early on, it'd be easier to play against them, I think, while they're not the most clean team. And then you have Cleveland. And Cleveland is interesting because first half of the season, Cleveland was not gelling. I don't know what it was. There were rumors that Donovan Mitchell and I think it was Darius Garland that they traded Harden for. They were having issues. I don't know if they were issues or they just weren't playing well together and it wasn't working out for them. It was a whole thing, right? But Cleveland is really sprung into its own since the trade deadline. They're back into the 4th spot. They're kind of situating themselves there. 37-24. There's obviously people right behind them, but they're playing solid. They're somehow the favorites in a lot of these betting odds. I don't know if that's because of James Harden. Personally, I don't think Harden moves the stick that much for any team. I'm not trying to hate on James Harden. James Harden was a great player. He's still a good player, but he's old. He's 36-year-old point guard. I'm making that up. He's probably younger. Let me look that up. No, 36. Damn, on the dot. I'm great. I'm good at it. He to me, it just doesn't move the needle, but I guess he does because it's kind of proof in the pudding where they're getting wins down the stretch here. And like I said, they're two games behind us. They're really cementing themselves above the Raptors and putting them in that 4 spot. And the standings aren't what they are. And I feel like the top 8 teams are probably going to be the top 8 teams going into playoffs. I don't see much different. And, Cleveland's a good team. And I always say, I've probably said this in a couple episodes this season alone, when we play Cleveland, it's always a good game. With Harden historically over the last 6 years when he was playing on the Nets with us, against us, and the Sixers, does not show up against us. He had like one or two really good games, but he cannot get the series win against us, which is part of, and I'm delusional in my head saying this, but like, there's always weird pros and cons to playing these teams, and adding James Harden to the Cavaliers, while in the long run makes their record better, I think in the playoffs it makes them worse, because I think James Harden is not going to show up for them in the playoffs, especially against us. I think we know how to play against them. I think we know how to defend them. I don't think we know how to defend Donovan Mitchell, so if he goes crazy and Jared Allen's playing well and Mobley's playing well, they'll have a good series against us. But that's a good top four. That's a very clean, functional top four in the East. I know everybody's saying the East sucks, but I mean, Pistons, Celtics, Knicks, Cavs are all really good teams right now. Sure, the Thunder and the Spurs are still the favorite, but if you look at the other remaining teams in the West, like Rockets, Nuggets, Timberwolves, even Lakers is kind of a stretch on that. But I think it's Rockets, Nuggets, Timberwolves at 3-5 are just as good as any of those top four teams in the East. So I'm not super intimidated by the West like everybody else is. But if we find out that it's just OKC in the finals again, I hate to say this, but it could be a possible repeat for that team. They are a good team. They paid their players at the right time. I think Presti did a good job building that roster. That's the top four, and those are the teams I really want to mention and take a look at. If you look at the rest of the standings, Raptors at Sixers at 6, who we play tonight. That'll be a good game. We need to get a dub there. Magic at 7, the Heat at 8. I think that's going to be your top 8. Obviously, the play-in could change, but Hornets at 9 and Hawks at 10. And those guys are right on top of each other, and the Bucks are 4 games behind the Hawks at the 11 seed, so I don't think it's going to change. I think those top 10 teams are going to be playing, and I think what the top 8 is now, with Orlando at 7 and the Heat at 8, I think those are going to be the play-in teams who win, especially the Magic. Maybe the Heat might take a loss against one of those other 2 teams, but yeah, I don't see it changing too much. And then if we go over to the West, like I mentioned, Thunder and Spurs 1 and 2, Rockets at 3, Nuggets at 4, and Timberwolves at 5. And I think those are the major top 5. And then you have the Lakers at 6. And I saw something, what I think was pretty credible, where obviously the Lakers have weird struggles. You would think with Reeves, Luka, and LeBron, that would be a top 3 team right now. But the problem is LeBron and Luka seem to have similar weaknesses. Part of it's athleticism. LeBron is 41, 42, so that's kind of a given. But Luka's not the most athletic guy. The Lakers do seem very sluggish when the two of them are out there. Even Reeves, who kind of adds a bit of a pop, it just seems slow, where a team like us who really picks that apart and really attacks them, presses the ball handler the entire way up the court. When you have, 2 guys who are superstars but aren't the most athletic or don't play athletically. Obviously, I think Luka is athletic, but like his play style is very slow and clunky almost. I don't know. It just really does not coexist well, those 2 guys together. I don't think they're going to do much. It would be good to see them go on a run. Of course, I would love to see a Lakers-Celtics finals. I just don't see that happening, but and you got the Suns at 7, Warriors at 8. Teams that don't impress me, Blazers at 9, Clippers at 10. So, those final 3 teams, 4 teams almost, starting with the Suns, I don't really see much happening. 1 through 6 in the West, some interesting stuff. And then the rest of the teams are the rest of the teams. But there's no point in accounting for them because I think they're kind of out of the conversation. Let's take a look at the week ahead, right? So we are, let me get my notes here. We are playing the Sixers, like I mentioned, tonight at 8 o'clock. Got to get a dub there. We got to get some wins down the stretch to separate ourselves from the Knicks. I would rather sit in the 2 spot than the 3, so let's get that done. Bucks tomorrow at 7:30. Hornets on Wednesday. Hornets, Khan playing well. He's the most efficient rookie, apparently, so there's an argument for him for Rookie of the Year over Cooper Flag. He may or may not get that, but then you see Cooper Flag on Friday, and that could be the imminent return of Jayson Tatum. So, interesting week ahead. 4 winnable games, right? None of those teams I could sit there and go, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a fight. It always is in basketball, and you never know, but definitely 4 winnable games. It'd be good to go from 4-1 one week and then 4-0 the next. You're putting yourself in a good spot down the stretch here. like I said, I think it should be important for you guys to cement themselves with that second seed. I don't want to drop to third. So get it done, play well. There's not much more I can ask for other than be excited for Tatum's return. But I think what we've seen from this team is what we're going to see down the stretch before the playoffs. So, like I said, kind of an easy week to talk about. Nothing major happening in the league. We discussed some of our possible playoff opponents, but the closer we get, the more that picture becomes clear, really what we're going to be getting. So, thanks for guys for tuning in this week. Hope you had fun. Hope it was a good listen. This warm weather continues. It's supposed to be like 45, but raining all week, but hey, it's 45. Feels like Miami. And hopefully, Jayson Tatum returns this Friday. I will see you guys again next week. Go Celtics.